Get out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
Welcome to the Fantasy Baseballers podcast, where we cover fantasy baseball, waiver wire, and FAAB, helping you win your league one move at a time. I'm Lou Landers, joined by my co-host, John Carando. Make sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Dr. Otto Fantasy Sports. Drop a comment with your biggest roster questions of the week. We're breaking down the week 5 top waiver wire pickups, FAAB bids, and under the radar players you need to grab before your league mates catch on. So we've got you covered with those ads, the smart bids, watch list players, and much more. John, what's going on today, man? Lots of closers to chew on.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of shifting going on in the closer carousel.
There certainly is. And there's 3 specifically that I want to take a look at here. The first one is very obvious. He actually has the job guaranteed right now. It's Robert Suarez with the Braves. Excellent for years with the Padres, of course. Iglesias goes down. And now Suarez is a guy in Atlanta. And in those deeper leagues, he might be rostered already because people saw what he did last year. They knew Iglesias was up there in age and they grabbed him. But in a lot of leagues, he wasn't drafted in those shallower formats because Iglesias did have the job. Iglesias is 36 years old. Naturally, he could heal a little more slowly than your average relief pitcher at this time. It's a shoulder issue too. Anytime a pitcher has a shoulder issue, there's something to be concerned about. So right now, Robert Suarez locked into a job on arguably one of, if not the best team in the National League this season.
Yeah. So I think a lot of savvy owners coming into the season did draft Suarez at some point for that reason. Iglesias has had arm issues, let's say, over the past few years, especially just kind of like scares. Like it's never actually resulted into anything too crazy, if I'm remembering correctly, in the way of like lost time in the past however many years. But it's definitely been something that I've had kind of taken a mental note of, is that, you know, there's just been issues popping up with his arm. And you're right. Yeah. Shoulder injuries are notorious. It's probably the, I mean, aside from Tommy John surgery, meaning, you know, TJ, like it's probably the worst diagnosis.
Elbow or shoulder,
yeah,
no bueno, man.
No bueno, exactly. Yeah.
So no good.
He could be out.
Sure.
He could be. I mean, he could be out for longer than anticipated. Because right now they're saying that he's, you know, not going to be out for very long. But you know, that's not something that's ever safe to bank on. And it's good if you own Suarez, you got to feel pretty good about the fact that you know, because he's also, as you mentioned, he's got the experience. He's a good arm. And here, you know, it's like hearing about all this, it's very possible that Iglesias is out for longer than anticipated. So,
and what's interesting about it too is that I think even in the places where Suarez was drafted, he was cut in a bunch of places because Iglesias got off to a good start. So it's like, oh, damn, like I don't have the roster space. Let me, you know, pick someone up as a spec because Iglesias looks good. And Iglesias was pitching very well. I have him in a dynasty league. And obviously I don't have Suarez because the rosters are so deep, right? It's hard. But I do have this next guy. So I kind of feel like I was able to just swap one out for the other. Tanner Scott for the Dodgers. He's a guy who was the closer in LA for most of the season last year, but struggled a lot in the second half. Of course, they go out, they get Edwin Diaz. Seems like there's not going to be room for anyone to get saves other than Diaz in LA. Now Diaz is out for 3 months, maybe more. So we look, there's Tanner Scott, there's Vesia, there's Trinan. All of them will get save opportunities. Yeah. In terms of recent experience, Scott is the guy, although Trinan has been that guy in the past. And I kind of like to look at the experience when I'm making my evaluations. Everyone does it differently. Worth noting that of those 3 pitchers, Vesia has been the best of them so far. Slight edge over Scott because Vesia has a better K rate. Oddly enough, they lost to the Cubs last night. All 3 of them pitched. All 3 of them gave up runs.
Yeah. They're all about pretty even for me. I would say Scott and Vesia are even in my mind right now. And then you never know. Training is kind of the dark horse for me, just because he's that much older than the two of them. Unless I'm getting one of their ages wrong, but I'm pretty sure training's pretty up there. I think. Yeah. And Scott's probably, if I had to pick, I'd probably pick Scott. But yeah, it's hard to tell right now. They're definitely all worth.
Well, Vesia is very widely owned, believe it or not, because even though he wasn't getting saves for a while, until last night, he hadn't allowed a run. He was pitching lights out. Yeah. So he's more widely owned than Scott. And I think a lot of that also has to do with Scott struggling so much a year ago. I don't think Vesia is too available. Scott is the one who's available. So I'm looking to get him.
That says something, I mean, the fact that they're kind of even in my mind, and I didn't realize that. So what does that tell you? It tells you it's worth it probably to go get Scott in case, he does overtake Vesia, for save opportunities.
I think Scott got the most recent one and Vesia got the one.
I think he did.
Yeah. And our colleague Anthony Mastro over at DrO.com, he does a Hunt for Saves article every week. And he made a comment to me, of course, now the next save is going to be Trinan because that's how they do it, right? Yeah, it goes Vesia, Scott. You think you figured it out? Oh, well, here's a Trinan save for you.
That's usually how it works.
Yeah, that made me laugh for sure. So another interesting one, and we actually have this guy in one of our draft champions we did on NFBC because we didn't trust Jeff Hoffman. It's Louis Varland. The job in Toronto kind of seems like it could be going to Varland now because Hoffman has, I don't even know if terrible does it justice, lots of strikeouts, but he has gotten hit and hit hard, blown a bunch of saves, even dating back to last season, blew a bunch of saves. I'm not even talking about the one in the World Series, which is the biggest one he'll probably ever blow or have a chance to close out. But the Jays have officially made a switch, not necessarily to Varland, but it's a committee at the moment. That's basically saying we have faith in Hoffman maybe long term. We don't want to kill his confidence, but Louis Varland's going to be getting saves. And Louis Varland has been excellent since joining the Blue Jays. Even better to begin this season. No runs, 13 innings, 19-3 K to walk rate. That's pretty good. That's what you want in your closer's role. So Louis Varland, if he's out there, you go get him.
Yeah, he's a good arm as well. Hoffman's definitely like you said, he's got the strikeout stuff. I mean, not that Varland doesn't. He's got a 13 strikeout rate, 13% strikeout rate right now. But like he also has a 58% ground ball rate. Varland does, and so we talked about this before. It kind of gives him a little bit more a higher floor, right, in terms of performance usually, because he's got like the strikeout stuff and the high ground ball rate, and that's like an excellent ground ball. That's elite ground ball rate. So Varland's kind of
he's worked on that too. He's worked on that too, if I'm not mistaken, because he's a guy that's given up some home runs in the past.
Well, so that makes sense.
And so is Hoffman, but the difference could be now that Varland's getting those ground balls instead of those long balls hit against him.
It's a really interesting situation in a way because Hoffman has been so good with the strikeouts. Like he has his swinging strike rate is fourth in the majors for relievers right now. So that's just like actually Iglesias was second in the majors before he went down. So that so like his underlying stats do indicate Hoffman that he should be pitching a lot better than he has been. That he's getting unlucky in a lot of ways. But that said, Varland is definitely he's a very good arm in his own right. And so it's like, I think it's worth it knowing how much Hoffman has struggled thus far and how good Varland is anyway, that if you're going to roll him out there, he might get you a save or two, and then who knows, maybe Hoffman keeps struggling regardless. And then at least you have a really good reliever either way, who's probably not going to hurt you.
Yeah, I think Varland has a good chance to run away with this job, though. I really do. More so,
all the more reason to consider him.
Yeah, more so than Scott, and realistically, more so than Suarez, because I have more faith in Iglesias if he comes back than I do in Hoffman regaining that job. I mean, how many times can you watch a guy blow saves?
Well, I was just going to say,
you're like, Get out of here.
Yeah,
Man.
I mean, and sometimes it's sometimes it's a mental factor. Saves absolutely you need to be very strong. Like it requires a certain mentality to be a closer. Like that just isn't necessarily needed for the other roles in the pen. And so there could be some of that going on with Hoffman. Who knows? But it's kind of like if you're the Jays and Varland's getting it done, it's kind of just, and even if Hoffman has like the higher strikeout rate and the whiffs going on, like it's kind of like why make that change if he's getting it done? So I definitely see that angle.
That's the answer. If they're getting it done, you don't mess with a good thing. Don't fix if it ain't broke, right?
Yeah.
Starting pitcher J.R. Ritchie, the Atlanta Braves. So I'll say be cautious of how much you bid, because there's a chance he could lose his job when Spencer Strider returns, and that could be in the next 7 to 10 days, according to reports. Ritchie, former first rounder, though, 22 years old, and he looked the part, John. I don't know if you saw any of his stats from his start against the Nationals. Are you able to watch any of it? But he struck out 7 over 7 innings, 2 earned runs. One of those earned runs, though, literally came on the first pitch of the game. James Wood took him deep.
Oh, interesting.
After that, 1 earned run, 7 strong innings, fantastic stuff. Now, you also look at the Braves rotation. Strider could get hurt again. Sale's up there in age. Ronaldo Lopez has had injury issues. There's injury-prone arms there. Ritchie could seemingly stick with the team regardless of when Strider returns. So I like him. I just think that you should be a little cautious in terms of how much you are going to spend, because his role is not secure. And there's people who like Didi Fuentes as well. You saw what happened. He came up. He wasn't even all that good, and then he got sent down. And if he does come back up, probably going to be in the bullpen. So that's why you do have to be careful sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of those things I tell myself with pitching. If there's like pitchers that are less established, let's say, for whatever the reason, they can really come back to bite you. And yet every year, it's tough to ignore when you got guys who are flashing or who have a lot of potential coming out of spring training or just in general. But this is with Didier, that was certainly the case with Fuentes. But with Ritchie, I mean, I agree with you. I think that if he wasn't on the Braves, I probably just wouldn't be interested, to be honest. But he is on the Braves, and that gives you high win potential as an SP.
I'd actually be more interested if he wasn't on the Braves, man, because he'd be starting.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a fair point. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, I don't know that I didn't watch him start, but I did look at his stats and everything from that game. And one thing that did stand out to me is that he has a ton of pitches, if I'm not mistaken, that he's using. And that's kind of cool, because it just gives you more wiggle room. If you have an off day with 1 or 2 of your pitches, like now he's got like 3 or 4 more, or however many he's got.
You need is 2 or 3 to be on that.
Right.
Day.
Exactly.
And
so that's really actually kind of, a nice luxury that most arms don't have, that maybe he does. But that being said, at least, for in that first game, his whiff rate wasn't like, so like, especially compared to some of the other names, the other SPs we're going to go over, it was just like more lackluster. And I don't know. I guess I would need to see more to be to feel comfortable rolling him out there more consistently, but definitely an arm at least worth watching, and probably one if you can snag him cheap and you got the room on the roster, then why not? So I'm
definitely interested. I just worry that he's not going to be able to maintain a rotation spot, because the Braves right now are fairly healthy once Strider gets back.
That's probably the biggest risk, honestly, is that he's just not going to start.
Exactly. Before we continue, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Dr. Odo Fantasy Sports, turn on notifications. You will not miss a single episode. Outfielder Carlos Cortez with the Athletics. And some people might be thinking, who's that? Well, let me tell you, very productive, very, very productive in a short sample a year ago. And so far in 2026, this guy has been even better, and more impressively, John, A's are a pretty good lineup, right? He's been hitting 3rd in this lineup because he's been hitting so well. And he's going to stay there if he continues to hit this well. I loved him yesterday, and then all he did was go out there and hit his 3rd and 4th home runs of the season last night. He's walked more than he has struck out this season. He's batting .339. He's He's got a 403 on base percentage. Is it going to last? I don't know, but he was doing this last year, and now he's doing better this year. And batting third, I mean, when you got guys like Kurtz and Soderstrom and Wilson, et cetera, at some point Rooker will be back, and that could change things. That's for real. So when you got a guy hitting third and coming up, I believe he's got all home games next week in the minor league ballpark in Sacramento. Look at Carlos Cortez, folks. Look at Carlos Cortez.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a guy that's just been totally off my radar. Like I learned of his existence like when you told me about him, basically, and then I looked at his stats and everything, and I gotta say I like what I see. He's got a 15.4% barrel rate so far. He's not averaging 91 miles an hour off the bat. His 110 max. I mean, that's pretty much exactly what you want to see. Like that's all great stuff in terms of his batted ball profile. But you know me. The thing that I'm probably most excited about seeing is that he's got more walks than strikeouts, and that's a really, really good indicator, that he can maybe keep this up. So if you put it all together, that's a lot to like right there in the profile.
Yeah, and fantasy baseball is a long season, right? When we are giving you these waiver wire pickups, they're not necessarily guys that are going to be tremendous all season long. But you got to ride the hot hand at times.
Yeah, and you never
got to get those good stretches. And yes, exactly. You never know. Maybe Carlos Cortez does hit 300 all year.
Right.
He did it last year. He's done it so far.
A lot of guys who weren't, top prospects, right? Because not every guy that's become very, very good was once a top prospect or a name that everybody knew. And so, this is like, you never know when a guy just starts doing well, maybe it's a swing change, maybe it's a coaching, hitting coach change or whatever, coaching change or whatever. And they start doing really well and they don't stop. It's rare. It's not the expectation and it shouldn't be, but it's possible.
It certainly is. So one of those starting pitchers you mentioned you like more than J.R. Ritchie is probably this next guy. And I don't even think it's because you're being a homer as a Red Sox fan.
Nope, not just because of that. Yeah.
Peyton Tolley looked really, really darn good earlier this week. And I think the Red Sox have something special with him, man. I mean, top pitching prospect, whatever. You can talk about all that, but 11 strikeouts, 6 innings against the Yankees in Fenway. 1 run allowed was a Jazz Chisholm homer, which was pesky pole homer. Like if it was the shortest home run in Jazz's career for what it's worth. And Sonny Gray's on the injured list. He's going to see more opportunities in the rotation. And quite frankly, if you saw Brian Bayo pitch last night, I think it was like 13 hits in 3 innings or something. Even if Gray comes back, how do you keep Tolley out of the rotation over Bayo?
Yeah, you don't.
You don't.
Bayo's been under the hood. Bayo's been smoke and mirrors for a while now. He's got interesting stuff and he has had it, always, but he's never really put it together in terms of just like, if you look at the underlying stats, they all indicate that he's been, that last year, especially, he was performing over his head. And so he hasn't really put it all together. I'm not sure he ever will. Toll, on the other hand, is just a maniac. The dude he's a great personality, fiery, pitcher. He's a 6'6" lefty that throws 97, and he's got filthy stuff. So if you look at 3 of his pitches have a stuff plus, which is just a fancy way of like, it's basically just says it's a way that we can kind of like see how competitive pitches are now based on like their spin rate and their velocity and such. And 3 of his pitches have a stuff plus over 120. Anything over 110 is considered elite, if I'm not mistaken. So that just gives you kind of some insight into how nasty his stuff is. And if you add it all up, it's just like, I mean, he's got front end stuff. He's got front end potential, and that's not saying that lightly.
He honestly reminds me, not in like necessarily their delivery or anything, but the stuff reminds me of Garrett Crochet stuff. It really does.
I mean, just filthy stuff. Yeah.
I think he struck out the first 6 or 7 Yankees he faced.
I was just going to say he had, this game he had a 19.4 swinging strike rate. And again, anything 12% in my mind, at least, or above, is great. So he was just whiffing everybody.
It really makes you wonder why they signed Ranger Suarez.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I do kind of like Ranger in a way because he's kind of just like he's got a high ground ball rate, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure, and I mean he eats up innings, but he cost a pretty penny, and they had this big lefty just waiting to come up. So it makes you wonder for sure. Third baseman Ronnie Mauricio with the Mets, so he's actually going to become a shortstop momentarily. What actually surprised me though is they could have just moved Bo Bichette from third base to shortstop, right? That would have been the simplest, easy thing to do. But no, the Mets have said, we're going to let Mauricio be the guy at short while Lindor is out. And Lindor is going to be out. They say his issue is worse than what Soto's was. So you're looking at a month, maybe even more. So that's going to be every day at bats almost for Ronnie Mauricio. And people forget he was a top prospect at one point. He's been around for a while. He's shown off power. He's shown off speed. Every day at bats, I'm interested.
Yeah, he's got a sky high strikeout rate to go with that, but that's why he's not owned everywhere. So it's I don't know that I think the ratios are going to be, I think, pretty abysmal. But he does hit the ball very hard. And the power speed combo is always interesting. So you never know too if he heats up. So
I mean, what if he puts up Luis Robert type numbers from last year?
Yeah, I mean,
you would take it. You would hate the batting average, but you would take it. The power and the speed. Yeah,
and it depends on league context and team comp and everything too. If you can take the hit, then he could absolutely be worth it, 100%. If he plays well. We'll see, but it is interesting that they're kind of just saying here, like he's gonna be the guy at short.
Yeah, because I mean, again, I'm not in the clubhouse. I'm not a general manager, but I would think you have Bo Bichette, who is a shortstop in Toronto for 6 years.
I agree.
Just slide him over, put Beatty at third base.
So it does say
something. Used to playing, and so they clearly want to give this guy a legitimate shot. So that I do like. Speaking of third basemen who are actually third basemen and staying at third base and possibly one of the best defensive third basemen ever, Nolan Arenado. I think a lot of people thought he was washed up. That's just not the case, though, John, is it? It's been a big part of the D-backs lineup lately. Past 13 games, batting over 300, 4 homers, 8 runs, 12 ribbies. And if you're in a deeper league struggling at third base or corner infield, Arenado could be your savior.
Yeah. So he's an interesting guy because he's never he's been a phenomenal player over his career, and he's never really hit the ball especially hard. And the reason why I bring that up is because maybe guys who kind of like hit in this sort of fashion, maybe they have a little bit more longevity, right, into their career because they're not relying on the high exit velos early. Like, I don't know that, but that's one way to maybe look at it where I don't think he's ever had a year aside from, I think it was his rookie year where he was averaging 90 miles an hour, at least off the, like it's all been under 90 miles an hour off the bat average. And yet he's had many years hitting over 30 home runs and some over 40. And so,
even after his Colorado days, he was still putting up big power numbers.
Right, exactly. And so, and now he's had the team this is his first year with the D-backs. So, with that change of context, and that's another thing too that I think about. Like I liked Arenado coming into the year actually for this reason, or at least he was interesting to me because it's like, okay, he's with a new team. They're kind of an exciting team, that alone for somebody who has, his talent and has his impressive career, that could kind of be a rejuvenating factor. Obviously you're in a new context, you get excited about it, and you put in extra work in the off season or whatever it is. And so I think that's what we're seeing, and I think that he's got the playing time, he's locked in, he's got the experience, obviously, as a major league hitter and player, and obviously the phenomenal defense. So, you know what I mean? Like you have that stability where he's going to be playing, and you have some upside here too, based on just the hitter who he used to be, and maybe who he can gain some of that back this year too. So there's a lot to kind of like in the way of stability in his profile in my mind.
And I do like the lineup around him. And it's funny because if you look a year ago, the Cardinals lineup was atrocious. So far this year, it hasn't been bad at all. Some of the young guys stepping up, but you got to like the lineup context. The D-backs are loaded with talent offensively.
Absolutely, I do. And yeah, the one concern for me, like last week, looking at, or just like kind of along the way so far, has just been I think he had like he's got like 13 strikeouts and not very many walks, right? But in the past few games, I think so he now has 3 walks and 2 of them have been in the past few games, right? So that's kind of nice to see too, right? Because it's like, okay, so hopefully he's gonna kind of start being more patient too, to keep pitchers honest, because you just don't want to see somebody this kind of like later on in their career racking up too many strikeouts, because maybe then that's indicating that they're not seeing the ball as well or something like that,
Sure.
So
absolutely. Or the bat speed is,
right, exactly, all the above. It might
be. Sure. Absolutely. We have more players to discuss here, so don't go anywhere, everybody. Before we continue, just make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Dr. Roto Fantasy Sports, turn on notifications so you don't miss any episodes. We still have 2 pitchers, a hitter, and some watch list players for you. Speaking of one of those pitchers, we have Lucas Giolito finally signs a contract. He does so with the San Diego Padres. Just so happens to be the team that's in first place right now in the National League West, even ahead of the Dodgers. Could be a month or so before Giolito actually joins the Padres. He's going to have to get some innings under his belt, work up the arm strength a little bit. I don't think they're going to rush him necessarily either, but now that he has signed somewhere, I think he is pretty interesting. He pitched well a year ago for the Red Sox, and now he's further removed from the elbow surgery he had in 2024. It wasn't Tommy John. It was that other one, like the brace surgery.
The internal brace surgery.
Yeah. But still, usually guys are better that like the second full season back from an elbow surgery like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying he's going to be Sandy Alcantara or anything, but, just that's a perfect example of a guy who was so bad last year after coming back from surgery, and now this year he looks like himself again. I like that Giolito is further removed from that surgery, and I like him going to San Diego, who, as I mentioned, is a very good team right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only question here logically with a guy like this is, what does your roster look like? Do you have the space? What are the other considerations for pickups, right? If Giolito's upside, right, is sort of significantly better than what other guys are considering picking up this week, and you have the roster space, like maybe you have like a deep bench or whatever, then it's kind of just like, why not? These are this sort of player, right, that used to be very good and then struggled and then got injured or whatever, and they've been out for a while. They're just like off most everyone's radar right now. So to your point, like, this is a really good time to just be thinking about Giolito and considering picking him up if you have the roster space and if you have that.
I feel like you could sneak him through because everyone's paying attention to Tolley.
I agree.
Even J.R. Ritchie because of the prospect hype.
Exactly.
People are obsessed with prospects.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where if he comes back, right, and he doesn't pitch well, you have him on your bench while that happens, right? Don't pitch him immediately, and then you drop him. Maybe you wait, I don't know, however long you want to wait. Maybe it's a couple of starts or whatever. And if he doesn't pitch well, you drop him. But if he does pitch well, everybody's going to be like, why didn't I think of picking him up? Because it's Lucas Giolito. And, so it's like one of those situations where it's low cost to pick him up right now and potentially, a decent return.
I think I like him a lot more in leagues that have injured lists, though.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
not sure I'm grabbing
I was just thinking
him right
NFBC,
now.
No, or anything like that. Yeah, I agree.
I'm not grabbing him in that format yet. I just don't have the roster space in most places.
My whole bench is injured, and yeah,
especially my pitchers too. Like I don't want to be down to one bench hitter just to pick out Giolito, but in IL leagues, I'm absolutely looking at him without question. Outfielder Leody Taveras with the Orioles. So he was kind of a name like 3 or 4 years ago when he was with Texas. And what he's doing right now, I don't think is going to last, John, but he's batting over 300. Just keep in mind, he's a career 238 hitter with limited power. Shown in the past with regular at-bats, he can steal some bases, though. We always like that. Only one so far this season. while he's hitting this well, though, he should be rostered, and the Orioles are keeping him in the lineup regularly, not even because he's hitting so well, because of his glove. So while he is hitting this well, he should stay in your lineups too.
Yeah, so I'm actually more of a believer in him this year, just because his issue in the past has always been his plate discipline, and this year he has the highest walk rate and the lowest strikeout rate so far of his career. Now, you could look at that two different ways. Of course, you could say, okay, he's going to regress maybe because maybe he can't keep this up, or he's made some legit changes and hopefully that sticks. So I think it's usually somewhere in the middle, usually. But even that is going to be an improvement. So if you got like a 250, at least 250 hitter, right? And he's got power, speed, and he's playing all the time, you know.
Power, I don't know. Speed, he's definitely shown. I think his career high is like 14 bombs. So the power is not really there. It's not non-existent.
I'd be interested to look at, you know, how much of that had to do with just how much playing time he got. I haven't admittedly, I didn't look, you know, in depth enough to see that, but I do know that he hasn't got, I don't know how, like, what the max has been on his at bats in a year, you know? But yeah, I mean, you know, to your point, even if it's just, we got a comment here.
We do. Finish your point, and then we will hit Nate's question. Thanks.
So like
the comment, Nate.
The fact that he has like one steal and one caught stealing, right, is in a way like more concerning. Because to your point, like let's say he doesn't have that much power and he's just going to hit like, you know, a bomb every now and then, but he's got good speed, right? And now he's got, you know, much better plate discipline this year. Then that's enough, obviously, for consideration, even if he doesn't have a whole lot of power. But that's why I'm kind of looking at the steals like, I'm hoping that it's just kind of lagging right now and it's not something where he's slowing down. So I don't know.
For sure. So to answer Nate's question, it's interesting. Firstly, it kind of depends what you need, Nate. And if you're still watching right now, if you need speed, obviously I like Caballero, even though I think he's going to lose his everyday at bats when Volpe comes back. But looking at this, Durbin not doing it for me this year. Karros, even being in Colorado, has not been all that good. Dubon I like, but he also could lose playing time when Kim comes back. The guy to me is Beatty. I think it's Beatty that I like the most. Firstly, he's got tons of positional eligibility, but I do think that Beatty showed last year that he is a legitimate presence now in the big leagues, and he says that it is head-to-head points league. Okay, that does change things a little bit, I guess, in terms of who is more valuable, but Karros still no good to me. I still think I'm going with Beatty. John, what do you think?
I'm thinking Beatty for upside. I agree with you. That was my first thought, right? And I was just looking at Dubon, or Dubon a little bit. I think it's probably between Beatty and Dubon for me as well. If you need like someone to plug in the hole, you know, in your lineup, maybe go Dubon just to have, so, you know, you have the higher floor a little bit, but Beatty's got the most upside. He's definitely the most interesting of these names to me.
All right. And we have a comment here. Good morning. Good morning to you. Well, interesting you bring up Vargas. He was going to be on our watch list, and John does really like him. So, John, take it away. What do you think on Vargas?
Yeah, so I just like his underlying stats. His underlying stats are actually quite impressive for a guy that we would otherwise have no reason to believe in, you know. And he's up there too, you know. I think he's like 34, you know, or something. So you know, in a lot of dynasty circles and just kind of in general, people tend to get more excited about obviously younger hitters and their potential. Even if it's talking about year long, we kind of get into that mode of thinking. He's a guy who I just think is doing better than anybody expected, and who is and that includes with his peripheral stats. So he's a guy who has my attention. I don't know if I can say like, oh, he's for real, like he's going to keep this up. You know, he's like a legit like this is who he is, and we can bank on this. But I will say that it's definitely more real than I think a lot of people realize. So that's kind of my take overall on him.
No, good stuff there for sure. And the second part of the question with Caballero losing playing time when Volpe returns, almost assuredly, Volpe is going to take over at short. The question is going to be, and no one can get inside the mind of Aaron Boone and actually understand what Aaron Boone does on a day-to-day basis. I'm a Yankees fan. I would like to see Caballero get some opportunities at third base over Ryan McMahon. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. So yes, there's going to be loss of playing time, but maybe not as much as you would think if the Yankees continue to use him at third base over McMahon at times. So there is something to be said about that. Also, keep in mind, Giancarlo Stanton might be injured, although they might bring up Jason Dominguez. In that situation, Caballero can also play the outfield. So perhaps the Yankees will continue to get him at bats. Certainly, he's going to be pinch running and getting stolen bases. So if you want the stolen bases still, he will definitely be getting those stolen bases still, almost assuredly. Let's move on to starting pitcher Peter Lambert. And also, thanks for those comments, everybody. And you can continue to not only post comments today, but through any of our shows. And even if you post the comments after the fact, we can read back and try to comment back to you at any time. Of course, you can follow us on X. John, give everybody where they can follow you on X.
Yeah, so I'm at John Carando. So it's just my name. Yeah.
All right, and I'm at Landers Talks, and of course you can find us at drroto.com. So Peter Lambert pitching for the Astros. And look, the Astros aren't in dire need of arms, John. I mean, they have a terribly injured pitching staff. They got their butts kicked last night by the Yankees in Houston. And Lambert has stepped up and done pretty good so far. Most recent start against the Guardians, 6 scoreless. But even before that, he had a game where he struck out 8, and then he struck out 8 against the Guardians too. So first 2 starts, 8 strikeouts per start, pretty good stuff. And if you're in a deeper format and you need some strikeouts, you need an arm right now, he's a guy to take a look at. He's not Peyton Tolley, he's not J.R. Ritchie, but maybe he's the guy you use until Lucas Giolito's ready.
Yeah, I mean, I like Lambert. I think he's interesting because this is his first year away from Coors, not on the Rockies. And his fastball is actually up a tick this year. He's at 95 miles an hour on his fastball now. He's got, so far, over those 2 games, a 17.7% swinging strike rate and a 13% K rate. So that's all very, very good. And he has a 52% ground ball rate, right? And so, again, that combo is promising. And I think, you add all of this up, and it's as much reason to believe in a guy that we've not been interested in for any reason prior to this year as you could hope for, Oh, sorry, I can't.
That's all fair, man. That's as fair as it gets. And the Astros traditionally have done pretty well with pitchers.
Yeah, they have. That's another reason to kind of pay attention to Lambert.
I'm with you there. So we promised watch list, and although Vargas was one of our watch list guys and was brought up, we have some other guys. And of course, John, you can hit on Vargas again if you want to.
Yeah, I will. So, Vargas, this is just to emphasize. So he's not hitting the ball like especially hard or anything. But he had like over the course of his career, his barrel percent has been like his average, like something really crazy low, like 3% around there. And this year it's at 8%. So it's not like, super great, but it's a notable improvement. And if you look at all of his underlying stats, with the exception of his power is a little bit, it's showing that. So like right now his slugging percentage is 671. Like that's insane. His expected slugging is like 572, right? So it's lower, but it's still quite good. I mean, that's very good. And his expected WOBA is still over 400. And his expected batting average is like still well above 300. So what all this is to say that what he's doing, the underlying stats suggest is more legitimate than I would venture to say any of us would have expected. And that's kind of why I like him, because he's just like this dude that nobody really buys into. But when you look under the hood, it's like actually kind of interesting. Is there a chance that he just totally falls off? Absolutely. But again, it's like
there always is with these types of guys. That's why they're on the watch list too, right? That's why we're not, even the guys who are on our waivers or FAAB list can, of course, watch at any time.
Sorry. Schultz.
Yeah. Schultz 100%.
100% Schultz.
Some context though, just in case you're wondering why. Better arm, and he's locked into a rotation spot without question. And whereas Richie's just isn't. Obviously, the Braves are a better team than the White Sox, but don't chase wins in fantasy baseball. That's a good way to put it. It's the hardest thing to predict. So, in terms of another pitcher, though, for people who are interesting on my watch list, he was on my watch list last week too. He's going to be again. It's Dustin May with the Cardinals. So, don't look at the overall stats, because his first 2 starts, he allowed 13 earned runs. It was brutal. However, past 3 starts, just 1 earned run each, and he's picked up a win in each of those starts. And in those 3 starts, 13 strikeouts, just 2 walks. So Dustin May should be kept on your watch list. We got May, we've got Vargas. John, I know you got 2 other hitters you want to talk about.
Yeah, I think DeLuca is kind of interesting right now. He's just he's got decent prospect pedigree, and he's just playing solid ball right now. So that's just a name to watch. And then Dom Smith, our old buddy. Once upon a time, Dom Smith was a pretty well-known, highly regarded prospect, and then he just kind of totally fell off. Like just all of the prospect shine fell off, and here he is again many years later, and his underlying stats are quite good, and so it's just something that's interesting, and it makes me wonder, maybe have there been any off-season changes to his game or anything that would kind of lead us to believe that he could keep this up. I don't know, but definitely worth watching.
I think so too. Anything else out there that is kind of catching your attention? Anyone else you want to kind of give a shout out to?
Not too much that I can think of. Just excited about Toll, or Toley, however you pronounce his name. As a Sox fan, he's definitely, like I said, he's a fiery personality. And
he's just got to be guys like this priority, right?
100%. I mean,
100%. Of course, if Schultz is out there in your league still, I'm surprised he would be, but clearly he is. We're getting asked this question.
That's a good question.
Every league is different.
Right.
If it's Schultz is out there, I still feel like he has a clearer path to a rotation spot than Toley does.
Exactly.
Even though I do prefer the Red Sox pitcher.
Yeah, it's kind of even for me for that reason, but I would say go with the guy that has the job. Usually that's
But definitely in most leagues where Schultz has already gone, Toley's definitely got to be the guy to pay attention to and probably spend big. I know I'll be spending big where I can. I might not get him, but I'm certainly willing to do so.
Yeah, if you got to be part of it.
If you found this helpful, guys, girls, ladies, gentlemen, then please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Dr. Roto Fantasy Sports. Turn on notifications. You won't miss an episode. We will answer your questions live or after the fact. The replay will also go on YouTube, and we'll have timestamps for each and every player so you can find the specific player you want to listen to. But that will do it for this week's episode, breaking down the fantasy baseball waiver wire and FAAB strategy. Next week, there is no show. John is traveling, and I'm going to be filling in for Dr. Roto on Sirius XM. We'll be talking tons of waiver wire, so check that out. That'll be your version of the Fantasy Baseballers waiver wire. We'll be on Sirius XM. I'll be doing that either by myself or with some special guests. But good luck this week. Be aggressive. Stay smart on the wire. I'm Lou Landers. He He's John Carando. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drroto.com. And until the next visit, be well and take care.